goes like this, the fourth, the fifth, the minor falls, the major lifts, the baffled king composing hallelujah. Hallelujah. Faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof. Her beauty and the moonlight overthrew you. She tied you to a kitchen chair. She broke your throat and she cut your hair. And from her lips she gave you hallelujah.
Okay, it's good. Entering the sonic space podcast.
Didn't work, shit.
Okay,
Well,
let's do a drink and let's just get into it.
yeah.
Welcome everybody to this episode of the podcast. We are here to finally back. It's been a little bit for a while since we were able to do our last recording, so we were happy to be back in. So to have you here today in the studio, Max. How are you, man?
It was intense experience there, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Like we
Of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, and how was your trip to Aarhus from coming from Vienna? If it
small
was-
talk. Really nice.
Yeah, okay.
Like he booked me the trip, and then I ended up coming like from Berlin. My middle stop was Hamburg, and I arrived at 11 o'clock in the evening. I had to wait until 2 o'clock, and I spent it at the train station of Hamburg. But like you get out, and it's like you have just like I don't know, junkies, drug dealers, prostitutes, hustlers, homeless people, and it's really like kind of like a very rough environment.
Yeah.
And then I had to spend there the time and going around, and it was really like intense at some point. And yeah.
That's how the stories get written, I guess. Just spending time in the Hamburg airport. Yeah, man.
Anyways.
But anyways, it's great to have you here. Like and normally you live in Vienna and work with establishing yourself as part of the scene, I guess. And maybe can you tell a little more about some of the projects that you have been doing in Vienna and your own background in music and this kind of things?
No, but so I live in Berlin actually since like 6-7 years, and I come from Vienna originally.
Oh yeah.
And but like I guess like also what I'm doing is more like also improvised, abstract, contemporary, classic mashup of jazz and I don't know, all kinds of genres and aesthetics that you can name depending on like who I'm playing with, I guess.
Yeah.
And though that those terms are anyways like to some point anyways insufficient to explaining like what it is about.
Yeah.
It's not explaining the aesthetic of what is happening, which is like a term that everybody agrees on in a way. But anyways, I don't know. Like I started out in Vienna as playing for myself mostly in the beginning, and then I had like the luck that I met like one musician over MySpace in that time, like Eric Arn, and like I added a band of his, like Primordial Undermine, and he's really like in this American like kind of American primitive music scene, it's called, and like contemporary psychedelic, I don't know, and I added his band, and he wrote me like, if you're in Vienna, like you want to meet up and like have a session, and I came to his house and we played, and I was like 17 in that time, and it was just, I don't know, I had a guitar, like, and I was just like playing for myself and like not really established a musician or like any kind of practice. And then I met him, and we played, and he introduced me like to this place in Vienna that was called the Celeste, and it was a regular Monday night session for improvisation, and it was led by Marco Enidi, and that was a collaborator of Cecil Taylor in the 90s in New York. Yeah, and all kinds of people just came there and like did like also potentially non-idiomatic improvisation. There was not really boundaries about music and so on, and that was maybe in a jazz context, but like really if anybody came there and just like was, I don't know, like potentially like kind of throwing glass on the floor or whatever, it was also like accepted and kind of not like looked upon. And there I played like for 5 years every Monday, and that was my school in improvisation, I think. Yeah. And I don't know, then I had like different collaboration groups and so on. At some point I moved to Berlin, and I don't know what I should go into detail with.
Well, I mean, so that sounds like so your
the origin story.
The origin story, yeah, of course. And it sounds also like an interesting change of scene. Like, how would you describe the changing of kind of like coming from Vienna and then suddenly staying in Berlin, like and meeting kind of like communities raised around improvisation, about jazz, about kind of like experimental music. And was it like because of course Berlin is a city that's very it has a lot of kind of like rumors and how you say legends current to the place, and there are all of these kind of like it's kind of like such a big center in European music and all kind of like art genres and stuff like that. So how was the experience for you to suddenly be part of this community? And
I mean, like definitely, I was considering to move there. Then I was also like kind of influenced and fed by like these ideas that have been pre-existing, no, in a way. But I think like nowadays it's a different place to like this kind of like golden era of the 80s or something, and it's like not so much this I mean it's still vibrant and so on, but it's like, I mean there was a special time in history where really specific things happened, and also politically, and like everything came together, and that's why it was very strong, no? And now it's a different time, and it's like different dynamics and so on. But still, I mean, a lot of people come to Berlin like because they are like inspired or like have heard about this, and therefore like it still draws a lot of people. And compared to like Vienna, it's really like in Vienna I still have a very diverse scene. I think you have like really the ELAC, also Electroacoustic Institute, like improvised abstract music, and there's all kinds of scene, like the free jazz, blah, whatever, and more contemporary, more mainstream, also classical stuff and so on. And it's very diverse anyways, but like it's also very kind of overseeable. Like at some point, if you stay there for a long time, you kind of like, you know everything in a way, and it doesn't change so quickly. And then maybe like over 10 years or something, there's coming a new generation like new inputs into the scene and so on, but it's very slow. And the difference in Berlin is really like that it's like very fluid, like people come out, like maybe they're staying there, then they're moving again, away again. And it's also for touring life, I mean, it's very central to some degrees, and like a lot of people are coming through, and like also because of the legend. So, I mean, you have just a lot of confrontation there with different aesthetics and cultures also. I mean, in Berlin, you rarely meet like people from Berlin, and also my circle there, and I don't talk like German like most of the time because it's just like international people and colleagues and so on. And that's the environment that is built there in a way. No?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's also interesting, of course. Berlin is a city that has had, as you said, a lot of kind of like historical kind of like precedents. In so I guess in a way it's also that a lot of the music scene of Berlin has been kind of like shaped by these kind of like historical events that has been taking place, and in that regard, it has become this kind of like the city that survived in a way, the city that never died in a way, even despite of all of the hardship that it had to go through in some ways, and maybe in that regard, it's also influenced the culture in a way, and the art scene of Berlin is this impact that art had to be like the mediator for expressing this kind of like political kind of like turmoil. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean probably, but and I don't know if like that is so much translating now to people that are going there that didn't live in that context. I mean, I met people sometimes that were like really growing up in the time also before the wall and like with the whole dynamics there, and then they have a very different attitude to people that just like come there and come from different cultures. And the point is like that like the cultures and like the histories and like the ideas are mixing up there in a way. It's not like that is like predefining. I mean, this was maybe really in the 80s and so on when this thing happened, that was really the expression there and like that was drawn there. And in the whole post-punk movement and so on, a lot of people came there because it was like this kind of like intensity and like the need to express and so on, just what you mentioned now. But nowadays, I don't know, and depends on the scene and like in like kind of like which circle you move, and there's different ideologies and different like politics and motives like surrounding music, I think. But I think Berlin is also something like why it is so like diverse and chaotic is also because it was kind of like super diminished and destroyed, and there was not really essence left at some point in a way, no? And then it's just like I don't see so much. I mean, maybe I'm gonna get cancelled for this, but like no, but I don't know. But I don't see so much like this Berlin culture in itself. For me, it's like really much more like a melting pot of anything, and it's just that is the interesting part of it. That is like there is not so much. There is a history, of course, but like with the people I am like engaging with there, nobody has this history. I'm not like I'm playing or working a lot. Rarely, hardly, with like Berliners with that like kind of like history. It's just like people that know the legend and come there, are drawn to, and then everything else is kind of like combined and like meshed up. No?
Yeah, that's so interesting. Like how you see this kind of like influx of like all kind of different cultures creating this hybrid culture almost exactly. in a way. So and that way, I guess Berlin is maybe one of the European cities rather than like let's say a German city, or it's more like symbolizing in a sense like a way bigger artistic geographical sphere. In a sense, it's kind of like our epicenter for European culture, maybe in some way.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you're in Vienna, I mean, like, there is a lot of Viennese people, and like, what my experience really, like, at least in the area where I'm working, like, I don't meet so many Berliners. That's the thing. Yeah. But I mean, I guess they exist, but like, not in my field of working so much. Yeah. It's always like when I meet somebody, it's like, oh, really? You're from Berlin? Kind of. It's a rare breed. Yeah.
So and in terms of and and then how does it because of course when there is such a lot of culture happening and art happening, how do you even I guess it creates a lot of space for basically native societies or native communities to evolve around art. So you have all of these kind of smaller ecosystems maybe, and I guess there are a lot of them where it's in cities like Vienna or even in Aarhus. You will see more like this interconnectedness in the entire scene that you're also describing. Like everybody kind of know each other in some way, and while in Berlin it's more like you have different kind of like communities, and you can never know everything, and
yeah, totally,
yeah. How would you say it has evolved now, like from the starting point of the 80s and until where we are today? Like will you say that
I mean, like, I'm not the Berlin specialist, but like, I mean, for me it's like when you compare now Vienna scene to like in that realm where I move and work, like to the Berlin scene, and there was a specific reason why I also wanted to, where actually when the option arose to go away from Vienna, where actually I embraced it because I wasn't like so fulfilled there, because I think like, also there's different points. Is you asked the question about the ecosystems and like about like knowing the scene and so on. And the thing is like, I think it exists in both realms. It's like if you're in Berlin, how I'm working there, it's also like it's a group of people and it's like a family. Everybody knows everybody, and it's like a lot of times it's like you have the events, and a lot of times people that come to the events are musicians themselves, so like they play for themselves. In a way, it's a kind of like an incest thing, kind of like or kind of like inbred, like and also like influencing each other in a way, also aesthetically and so on. No, so it's like I had this conversation, no, also yesterday I think. If you could, there was the time before where you couldn't like with Jeppe actually. It was like we talked about Robert Johnson, and he said like he was one of the first artists that like existed when there was like sound recording. So he was able to kind of attach to people that or like be influenced by people that he never met in his life, because there was a recording of it. And so prior to that, it was like that you had a scene surrounding you, and that kind of defined aesthetic, and that was like kind of like the counterpoint of like development, no?
Okay,
in a way, yeah. So that's the main point. And then this also happens in those scenes basically. So if I'm working in that scene in Berlin now, it's like a regular group of people, and we're all influencing each other and so on. And we know all of each other also. And that's the same in Vienna also. Though the difference would be to Berlin from Vienna, that it's like much more colorful in like kind of just the people that are there in general, like the mix of cultures and histories, and also that is changing more in a way. So you have much more influence in a way, and different counterpoints and like different aesthetics. And one big part for me why I was uncomfortable in Vienna was that I thought that a lot of even being in this kind of like fringe, like underground culture, like of improvisation and noise music, which is like, there's not so many who is interested in that there was like a lot of concurrent thinking in there, just like that people don't support each other. It's like, you have a contact for that thing? No, I don't give it to you. Or like, I don't know what, like kind of like that people, they had the feeling like they had to elevate themselves above others. And what's the point about that? No, if everybody would help each other, then like more people that are maybe not in that scene could like experience like an aesthetic like this, or like also these ideas of that kind of music, like the politics of this kind of music. If you do improvised music, if you do like abstract noise music, there's like a kind of like it has a like a political intention and like reference behind it, like critique of society or like structure or like consciousness by itself in a way, because it's not the established norm that people like are perceiving. It's challenging that to some degree, no? So then like people that have this kind of like attitude should maybe support each other, so that can be like translated more. And that in Vienna was not like this. And I think in Berlin it's also still like that, like with concurrence, but much less. There's much more the sense of community and much more the sense of family and kind of like supporting and loyalty and kind of like respect, you know. And I didn't have this feeling. I mean, I was younger and maybe I don't know, maybe I was too fucked up. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's my fault, you know. I don't know. I cannot like outrule anything, but like my experience at least was, whatever the reason might be, that was like very not embracive and challenging kind of, no. And in Berlin I didn't have this feeling.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I think oftentimes, at least in my experience of working and doing music and working as a musician, also in experimental electronic, punk, jazz, here in Aarhus, it's like you see these kind of like almost tribal like communities.
Societies,
tribal societies,
totally,
like small tribes that are like
exactly
that are like inhabiting areas within the city. So I guess in Berlin it must be scaled up a lot, you know, to like.
But I mean, there's like even like different tribes that are kind of like existing next to each other, and then sometimes they're intertwining and so on. I mean, I have like these friends from New Zealand that I met like pre-corona or something, and they have this Pleasure Magenta and so on. And this is not really connected so much to like improvised music, but like when I started recording with them and playing with, or like meeting them as people and like just like exchanging, there was so much like kind of in common and like parallels. And then I mean we didn't make so much like that they came to my gigs or like back and forth and so on, but then we still had collaborations with each other, and it worked. So like there's kind of this like crossover between the tribes in a way, even if it's not like completely like merging, but it's like some people of different tribes kind of like can still communicate and still work together, no? And that is super interesting, I think.
Yeah. And I guess also being so I'm also a little curious about like being this kind of magnet of European contemporary culture. How can you describe like the societies for like free jazz and avant-garde music and like noise and punk music? How would you describe these societies and these tribes in Berlin? Like, does anything come to mind with regards to like the specific communities and like the specific kind of like venues and how is the kind of like audience really also interested in this? Do you think that is kind of like being portrayed in the output of the scene, and also in the way that people kind of like that audiences kind of like interact with kind of more experimental genres?
Exactly. Like with the audience, that is the thing. Like that's also what I mentioned before already. Is like that like a lot of times it's like the musicians play for the musicians, no? And but then depending on the event, because some events like when they're connected to like some kind of like I don't know, like bigger scheme, like either from a festival or like from a different organizer venue or something, it draws like different other kinds of people. And I mean, I don't know if that answers your question, but like maybe because like maybe those people that come, and what I mean now is that they are not like potentially like the regular scene for that kind of music in a way, but like they get like maybe drawn to it for some other kind of reasons. But then like for me as a musician, for playing for people like that, they don't have like this kind of like listening habit or like kind of understanding or like education to some degree, you know, about these kind of structures in music. It's very nice because I had like sometimes really like genuine and like very truthful and like emotional like reactions from people like that. compared to people that know the structure and like the aesthetic and so on. And
Yeah.
it's also like the people say, oh, it's free improvised music and so on, but then listen to like 10 free improvised music on the brackets and bands in a row, and they all sound the same. I mean, it became like kind of a genre by itself already, no, in a way.
Yeah.
And that's also why I moved like in my artistic practice like to some other aspects at some point that I tried to combine like really more popular. For example, you say like, you combine pop with noise in a way, and that would be like really abstract. Then it's not about like doing harsh noise; it's abstract. It's like, okay, combine like two opposite genres with each other, and then that is abstract because like it doesn't fit together in a way. It's a paradox. No? But the people that came to the shows that like didn't know that, they had a really like genuine experience, because it's like really about the emotions, not about like that you're like rationalize like, oh, they're playing this now, it's this structure, and now they're going there and da da da. It's not about the science behind it, but like really about the emotional reference and the empathy and what they're actually expressing. And so I had really good experiences with that. And then, there is a certain kind of audience that is regularly coming to shows like this, no? But now and then draws in other people, and that is for me actually the sometimes more interesting crowd in a way, because you get a more like real response than with the people that are the professionals in a way with this. And a lot of times it's like the people that are the professionals which are in the crowd also, no?
Yeah.
Or enthusiasts also. I mean, but that it would be in the middle, I would say. Like, yeah.
I guess it also comes down to back to this idea of creating like a kind of more tribal kind of community. In that way, I think music is often like a conveyor of kind of new psychology in a way. And I think what attracts a lot of people to a city like Berlin is that there are so many spheres where this kind of like alternative psychology really exists. And where it's allowed to kind of like where we have so many possibilities essentially of kind of like finding a tribe that kind of like adheres to a certain type of psychology or mindset or like way of thinking about not just music, not just art, but kind of like also the bigger things in life that can come from music, you know, and come from kind of like this alternative scenes, like the.
I mean, it's support that kind of that like that not support. It's like kind of like push that these ideals are like expressed in a way, and like people are expecting that when they come there, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is also in the music, I think, like, and that's what I was saying before, like with the improvised music and so on. I mean, it has a political stance also, and like it challenges like kind of establishment of ideas, and also if you question certain ideas and so on, no?
Yeah.
And but I don't know. Even in Berlin, I think it's like you have so many people that are not like kind of questioning stuff, even if that is like the general. Impression in a way. It's like what you would expect from it in a way, no?
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's like you still meet people and they just like follow then their own like ways and like just accept like certain models of ideas that are being presented without questioning it in a way, no? So,
yeah, of course. And if you can talk, also, I'm really interested in hearing like a little bit more about different projects you've been working with as well, and if anything comes to mind regarding maybe one of the more current projects you're working with at the moment. So I wondered if you could tell a little more about some of the stuff you've been doing in these improvisation circles of jazz and free jazz and noise, and like can you describe does any specific project kind of like come to mind that you want to share a little bit about regarding how the kind of like artistic kind of like journey maybe took place for you and in a way that's fascinating to you and that comes through in a real sense in this particular project.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in general, like as I said before, I started out like with more like kind of like these improvisation circles where like you have blind dates with musicians, like you play just gigs, like you don't rehearse, like you meet on the stage and then you express yourself and like no. And also in that period that I mentioned before, like when I met Eric and so on, actually I was playing a lot for myself in my bedroom. And then I didn't have like so many concerts. And then when I had the concerts, like I think I really had still this kind of like attitude, also in a way like an egoistic one, that I don't even care like how people perceive it in a way. And like I don't give a fuck if they like it or not. I'm just doing that for myself in a way. No?
Yeah.
And then in that time, at some point, I met like a saxophone, or saw a saxophone player, Mario Rechtern, German saxophone player.
Oh yeah.
And and then the first time I saw it was really like mind-bending, like just the music and like really inspiring and crazy for me in a way. And at some point we got to know each other because I was also like booking in the space. Also, and I'm in general like doing a lot of organization anyways, also like I have my own series and in Vienna I had like was part like for 5 years or something, I don't know, of this space Moe, and so that I could like meet the guy and like organize a concert. And then when I got to know him and in the process of the collaboration, it was for me really the ideas that he told to me, like because he's coming from like the theater and like he was like a stage designer and like I don't know, traveling the world and whatever. But I think like really this theater experience, like and that what he communicated to me was really like that there has to be like an exchange of ideas and like that you don't do it for yourself, but it's like even if you think you do it for yourself, you play in a room of people and there's going to be a reaction of the people and this is going to be influencing you, and even if you don't like acknowledge it, it's going to be like this. It's still because you feel the room and this is going to have an effect. This is unavoidable, no? And so even if you think like, no, I don't give a fuck, blah, 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 it's still going to have this feedback loop in a way, no? And that was one of the ideas. And when I started playing with him, like at some point, like he told me that he was taking care of Linda Sharrock, and she's like a jazz singer from the 60s. Very famous. I don't know. From the wife from like Sonny Sharrock, and the very famous jazz guitarist, and they had this record in the 60s, like a black woman, and amazing vocalist, unbelievable. So yeah. And the thing was that she had a stroke like 15, 20 years ago, and it left her like halfway paralyzed, and she couldn't lost the ability to speak also. And he's taking care of her since then, like as a legal guardian. Okay. And at some point, like after we played like 1 2 times, he like kind of offered like maybe like we try something like to play with Linda and so on. And then we had one session. And the funny thing was that in that time I was more like still rock and more kind of like streamlined like aesthetics and kind of like maybe psychedelic rock or like kind of so not really super abstract noise blah structure, but like still like I don't know, like kind of Hendrix inspired or like from I don't know, kind of not really far out. And but I had this urge, kind of like I wanna go somewhere else. And then I had this session with them together, and in a basement studio. And I went down and we played this. And then when I came up, I sat on the couch and I was like, "What the fuck just happened?" And everything that I wanted to do, it actually just became true. Oh yeah. But it was too much for me to grasp, and like I didn't even know if I liked it. But it was like everything happened just now, no? Yeah. And then I continued this and like finally like went into that what I wanted. But like the funny thing was that I couldn't accept it in the beginning. It was just too fast. And out of this collaboration, basically, the structure that established itself was at some point like was Mario, Linda, and me, and we were the core of the group, and it's called In the Obesity of the Grounds, and we're doing this since 10 years. And that's the core of the band. And every time we play, we I book like other musicians to the group, and it's every time we play with a different lineup, basically. Okay. Yeah. And but the music kind of still remains the same to a degree, because there's like a philosophical background behind it and like a aesthetical idea behind it that is never changing. It doesn't matter who plays with it. will always sound like that, because also like I think the three of us have like very strong voices, and then it kind of like radiates around that. But the ideas is also when I started talking with Mario, what I said before with the theater and so on, that was one idea, for example. But for me it was really like I was like, I mean, like probably when beginning of my 20s, I don't know. And when I was talking with him, like he was connecting so many like aspects with music, and it was really like the caretaking of Linda, and then like history and philosophy and like I don't know, societarian context and so on, and just putting that all in a pot. And it was like the music is all about that. So it was not like music is about aesthetics or harmonies or like intensities. It's about like the political background about it in a way. And in the beginning, I didn't understand really like all these connections, and like sometimes like he was talking for 5 hours to me, and like just going places in a way. And I was like, it was like a kind of a psychedelic experience, under brackets, whatever. But like you couldn't follow it in a way, but still it was inspiring. And then over the years and years, I understood it more, and that really shaped also my idea of the music in a way. You know?
Yeah,
and that there can be like. And this idea, what I mentioned before, so that like when you play like this kind of like improvised and like abstract music, that there is a political stance also behind it. It's not just an aesthetic. It's like challenging like the established norm in a way, and like the status quo that people agree on. You know?
Yeah.
And one central part, like for example, again, into that aesthetic and the idea of this band is like that. That was what Mario like kind of established it somewhere. He calls it empathical harmonics. No? So because you can say like that you, let's say, first you're in jazz and you like band like and. React like on a harmonic level, and then you go into improvisation, then it's about structures, but it's abstract, and it's like structures like kind of like reacting to each other. And this would be like kind of like you can play whatever you want, and it can be a structure, a harmonic or whatever, but you don't attach it to the levels of like these like parameters, but it's about like the emotion that is standing behind the parameters. And so maybe I'm playing something harmonic, and then next to it is like something really abstract, and it's a structure, but it still works together because it shares the same emotion behind it. So you go one step out of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. And this is so that's the kind of roundup for this group, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, so it's also long. I mean, I can talk for this about this for hours, but like I think this is central points.
Right.
Guess, yeah.
That's great. Are you playing outside of Berlin as well, or mainly?
I mean, they are living in Vienna. I met them in Vienna. So, and the thing is also, it's like a more international and deep-based group. There's not a group. It's like they have people in France, in Italy, in Slovenia, in Vienna, in Berlin. And since we are the core, like we just travel somewhere, and then like we invite the people, and it's like an international group in a way. There is not a group. I mean, the group. I mean, the core is definitely Linda, because she's like kind of really also drawing the people in to confront in a way, because a lot of times it's like so it's about the music aesthetics also, like about the empathoharmonics. If you can like kind of understand this concept, and like a lot of times we play it like with people, and maybe it was a good show or not, but then the people that kind of like vibed with the music and understood the concept, it was also like after the show, like you sit with Linda and you try to have a conversation with her, and she's like, you cannot talk as of words, and she's just like yes, no, and some people were able to kind of like engage in a conversation with her anyways, and that then for this you need empathy in a way, you know, to kind of like understand and anticipate and like kind of like think into the other person, even if you don't have like the descriptive words of like what the conversation might be about. And that kind of like defined also like if they could attach to the music, because it's the same concept in a way.
Yeah. So I mean, for sure, it's really I will say it's a language of empathy in a way, you know. So it's also important to kind of like acknowledge this. And it sounds like a great project as well. So yeah, and of course there are many also aspects to kind of like fitting into a musical constellation, a musical collective, or a musical tribe, and what do you call it? I sometimes feel like you kind of like take on a head of like a person within that kind of like tribe. So sometimes you will be like the shaman, be like the chief, or you would be like a warrior.
Mario called Linda at some point, like she's the mama in a way. Like she takes care of everybody.
Yeah.
Even if she's not maybe like physically able to do that, but like for like kind of the challenge of like engaging and like kind of like also connecting everybody in the music. Because if you're in the band, it's like a lot of, so usually it's like this, that a lot of people like attached to like her vocals and aesthetics, and she's not saying words, she's like doing screams and runs and like kind of like expressions and so on, but then like people copy it and it all surrounds around her, and there was a review in the Rhyme also that is like this, I don't know who wrote it anymore, but they were saying like it's like this kind of like sine wave that goes through the sound and it remains the same and everything is revolving around it. So you have like 5 instruments and they're all changing, sometimes they go random but sometimes they go together, and like the point in the middle is always that this combines with that voice, basically, you know.
Yeah.
And then he translated that also in this caretaking of the tribe in a way.
Yeah,
like
right.
the chief and the mother of this tribe in a way.
Yeah. And some people are kind of like also. I guess also that's how the strength of a lot of kind of like movements within art and music and culture has originated, is because it is essentially an invitation. Maybe it's an invitation not just for musicians but for everyone to become initiated in the tribe as well. Initiated in the processes of the tribe and in the rituals of the tribe, and in that way it can grow even beyond musician circles, and can become like a collective psychology in a way of a community. So in that way, I think it's also it can be like a very potent source of kind of like of psychology in some way. Like for me at least, I always think about music as a kind of psychology, because in a way it's like you're creating new psychology, as you were talking about harmonic relationships and like empathy, you know, like some people they talk on a harmonic level where there's where you're kind of like moving out of the history of also of what we associate kind of like with different harmonic realms in music.
Exactly.
And then you have people who are kind of like moving outside of these conventions, but who are then adapting, or maybe the right word is actually creating new conventions and new kind of like paradigms for expressivity and musical psychology. So that's definitely very great, and it's something that I'm also very interested in maybe connecting with more people from that kind of network, with what we do now with the residencies and with the summer camp as well. So definitely it's nice to to actually finally get to meet you in real life as well, because we've been kind of like talking on and off through Jeppe and through different people. So it's very nice to definitely have you here in the flesh.
Yes,
so to say.
Totally.
And I'm looking forward as well for the collaboration we are gonna be doing as part of the summer camp. So we'll have a lot more information, of course, coming out very soon on Embassy with how with the project and the lineup of the artists and people involved and that all that kind of stuff. So yeah. And I'll just finish up our conversation by asking like what kind of plans are now kind of like in your head in terms of creating artistic and musical projects like in the future. Do you have any kind of like goals or like perspectives on how you want to work in the coming time? Now, is that more kind of like focused on Berlin, or is it kind of like focused on investigating international venues and networks as well, or maybe also doing stuff in Vienna or
Also, I don't really care about the localities, I have to say. It's like, and in general, I'm a person that I play a lot of shows, but it is mostly like more in the place where I live.
Yeah.
Like I'm not very much like I don't know, like skilled in organizing tours, or I couldn't be bothered with it. Like it's like I never went into that like thing of like booking tours. I mean, I had some tours, but like anyways, like it was never my strength. And also like playing festivals in the summer or something. It's like I'm more like really interacting of like the levels. There's like a lot of clubs in the city where you live. You organize the things there, and then I have my own series, and then it's just like on a local basis. But aesthetically, for me, it's really like what happened like in the last couple of years, and this is like a long movement that happened. It's like that, like 5 years ago or something, or like 7 maybe. I don't know. Briefly after I moved to Berlin, at some point I got bored about this like kind of like experimental pseudo non-idiomatic improvisation and pseudo, because like it is not. Most of the times. I mean, like, if you have really extremely skilled musicians, they can achieve that. But, like, the scene, in a way, it became an aesthetic, and people are just playing the same stuff, in a way. I mentioned that before. And for me, that was not, like, avant-gardistic or, like, interesting anymore at some point. I mean, it doesn't have to be avant-gardistic to be interesting. I also like pop artists. It doesn't matter. I listen to all kinds of stuff, but it has to be interesting music intrinsically. And but I followed always this like more extreme expression, like when I played myself, I guess, and it just lost the attraction at some point because it didn't seem real anymore, I think. And then I started to just try to follow like other directions in terms of like kind of having improvisation always as a source, because that is like where I'm coming from. It was natural to me. It was like really intrinsic for me. But like trying to combine it with other things like that. You say like the first thing was like a band that I had. Like it was the name. How old I am. Whatever. We will look it up.
We'll look it up. We'll put it in the description.
No, but like the idea of it was like that it was kind of like micro compositions and like very complex, like short pieces, like 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, and it's extremely composed. And then the live idea was like, okay, we have 7 of those pieces, and at some point like somebody of the band starts that and we go into the piece, but everything around is improvisation. So then you have different densities of music in a way, because like the improvisation can be like maybe more like kind of stretched out or like not so concrete. I mean, it can potentially also be very concrete if you like really know each other, the musicians and so on, but like if you have really like a composed piece of music, then there's gonna be a different aesthetic to it. So you're like kind of like playing with those 2 different like intensities of music, and it goes back and forth, no?
Yeah.
So somebody starts with the piece, you play the piece, it's 2 minutes, and then you go into improvisation again, and then at some point 5 minutes later somebody starts the piece again, and blah, blah. And that was like one of the first things where I went in a way. And that kind of continued, and I had like 2 other projects after that. And one was that met like a guy Namdi, and like we just became friends, and then we just made music just for hanging out in a way. There was not like kind of like the idea of like having a band or like making a record. It was just like I met the guy, we liked each other, and it was like, oh, let's just meet and like kind of like record at home and and that kind of really also like kind of like put me to the floor a bit, like kind of guy. We liked each other and was like, oh, let's just meet and like kind of like record at home and and that kind of really also like kind of like put me to the floor a bit, like kind of again like where my main intention came from making music, because like when you do this for such a long time in this kind of like semi-competitive environment, like you lose track of like why you're actually doing the music. It's like, no, I need to make a record, I need to make like representation, book tours, make photos, but whatever, all this bullshit, and it's not about the music so much anymore. And then like the start of the collaboration with him was like, actually, I met a nice guy, and like we're just hanging out and making music. And then for like the last 1.5 years, like we met regularly, and like we produced actually music. And before, for me, it was just like that I was like a studio musician more, like we were playing and like somebody was doing the recording. And with him, like I started to learn like Logic and like the recording programs and going really into mixing, mastering, and production, because we started these tracks where we like had like with MIDI just playing like 10 instruments, I don't know. Yeah. And he came really also from the pop side, and that's connecting again like to the different aesthetics and like this idea of like mashing up aesthetics, that he came from a place that was very like kind of more mainstream, let's say, in a way. Yeah. And I come from, let's say, extreme, like from the really like, okay, nice, and we meet in the middle, and then we created like tracks kind of like that that were meeting there, basically. And that is really what is for me interesting right now in my artistic practice, and where I want to go also, to answer the initial question, is like I'm not. I don't care about localities. Like I'm just doing my music. I can just do it in my room or so, and like just like I don't care. Or in my district. If I have the community around me, the musicians that I like to collaborate with, I don't need to go to places to do that. Like I like to have that close and just like formulate and like. And create my musical visions in a way. And like in Berlin is the perfect place for that, because you have so many. So where you don't need to go anywhere else, because you have so many people there, and such a variety. And
So sounds really great. Sounds very exciting, and definitely will be up for following up on this conversation. Maybe as well, it would be nice to collaborate on some residencies at some point with you and with people from your network as well. So time will tell these things, but it's definitely something we'll be looking forward to. So I'll just say cheers, mate. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for a great conversation, man.
Yeah, thank you.
And for the rest of you guys listening out there, we are very soon to announce our first initial residency with two very exciting artists coming from the scenes of Egypt and the scenes of Denmark as well, to combine kind of sounds into something that will probably be quite unique. It's going to happen here in August from the 21st to 27th, with a performance on the 27th as well. So definitely stay up for this announcement to come in the coming days. And thanks for listening, guys. Hope you have a good one, and we'll be back with more podcasts and residencies very, very soon.